How's it going, everyone? Mountainspyder here, and today I'm going to be doing a review of Seven Wonders. Now, this is a game I've looked at previously, but I'm going to be taking a fresh look at it as I've been playing it quite a bit more recently. And they got some new artwork, which is really cool. Now, it was a while back they got the artwork, but I must say I am truly loving it. And I figured, hey, why not share it? So, Seven Wonders is a great game for between 2 and 7 players. They're relatively short. I mean, most games are about 10 minutes. I think this one's about 8 minutes. So it's really simple to play, quick to play, and you can honestly have a lot of games in like an hour session. So the basic premise of this game is you get a civilization, and you want to try and basically build up that civilization through raw resources, advanced resources, civilization, science, and like culture cards, as well as guild and commerce. So you want to try and build up a civilization, build wonders, fight a bit with your opponents if that's your thing, and try and get as much VP as you can. It's basically like an engine building game. You're buying cards and putting them together to kind of suit your civ. The civs in this game are pretty well balanced across the board, so it's quite a fun game. So what I've done is, this is a pre-recorded video. So this is a game I recorded on the previous weekend. I'm now going to be just looking at it, walking through it, and going from there. So how the game works is, at the start of the round, you get a hand of cards. You can take one of those cards, you place it down, and you pass the cards to the next player. In this case, it's rotating clockwise. So it's basically a drafting mechanic, which makes it actually makes it really interesting, and it's a bit better than drawing off the top of the deck, because this gives you a lot of options. So you're getting a hand of cards, you're taking what you want, and you're passing across to the next player. And this rotates around continuously. The game lasts for 3 rounds. And the second round, the rotation swaps, and the third round, it goes back to clockwise. So the game lasts for 3 rounds, and you want to try and get out as many cards as you can. And basically, the round ends when the drafting cards are used up. And then in the second round, it's like the second age cards, which are better. And when those are used up, we go across the third age. And when those are used up, the game ends. So it's relatively quick. Now, taking a quick look at your civilizations. Each civ has a name. Sorry, this one's blocked at the moment. But we've basically got Giza, Alexandra, Rhodes, Olympia, and I can't remember which one this is. We'll check in a second. And each of these wonders has 2 sides, a side A and a side B. Now, I think there are 7. I think there's 7 of these civilizations in total, with A and B, which gives you 14 sides. So there's a lot of replayability in that sense. And each side has slightly different effects for the wonders you build. So generally, your civilizations have 3 levels of wonders. Some of our exceptions, Giza is an exception, which is 4. And Rhodes is an exception, which has 2. And basically your wonders do different things. So taking a quick look at the cards, at the top left of each civ card is what the civ card produces passively. So Alexandra passively produces 1 science, 1 iron, 1 ore, 1 loom, and 1 clay. And these are the resources you use to buy different cards. Now, generally in the first round, you're gathering as many of these resources as possible. You'll see here that these are the cards I have in my hand, and the one I chose was the one that allows me to get either iron or clay. And you want to build up as many of these resources as possible. So, one exception with this card is, taking a look at these cards, you see at the top is what they produce, and down the side here is like the costs for it and the requirements for it. So this card over here, I require to pay 1 gold to purchase it. Whereas if I were to play the baths, I need to have 1 iron to produce it. Now, these resources, you don't spend them. You simply need them to be produced to be able to buy these cards. And if you don't personally have them, you can buy them from your neighbors for a cost of 2 gold per. So, let's take a quick look at what happens in the first round. So the first round, we take our first cards. Now, I chose to go for iron and clay. My opponent, clay. Another opponent was wood and ore. At the bottom, wood or iron, and the side is iron. So generally in the first round, you're building up resources. And the reason for that is, especially from the second age, a lot of the cards have resource requirements. So you want to try and cover these resource bases as early as possible. So let's carry on rotating quickly. So moving along, as you saw, the hands then rotated. So now we've got quite a nice fresh spread here, so I kind of explain the different colors of the cards. Your brown cards are your general resource cards. These are the ones that are producing your resources, your basic raw resources. The blue ones are your civ cards. These are the ones that give you straight VPs. They don't give you much else. It's just straight VPs. Your yellow cards are your commerce cards. Generally, they give you gold, or they reduce the cost of like trading, which is when I said you take resources from your neighbors. The red cards are your military cards. Now, military is scored at the end of each round, and you're basically in conflict with your two neighbors. If you have more military than your opponent, you gain VPs, and if you have less military than your opponent, you lose VPs. When you lose VPs, for every conflict you lose, you get -1. For every victory you get +1 in the first age, +3 in the second age, and +5 in the third age. So winning your military victories in the third age is very important. Losing victories is not as important. Losing is not as detrimental as the advantage you get from winning is. Unfortunately, in this game, you'll see I decided to ignore military, and it ended up costing me the game, which is quite sad. And then you do have your science buildings, which are over here. Now, there's 3 different symbols for science. You want to get either the same symbol to get VPs, or you want to get sets of the 3 symbols. Symbol A, symbol B, symbol C. You want the one set of those to get VPs. And then the other type is the process materials, which are these gray cards. So you keep on rotating around and passing cards and slowly building up what you want to get. Now this tavern is quite interesting because it actually gives you 5 gold right off the bat, and that enables you to buy resources from your neighbors quite easily. Now what you saw there was when I was picking up that card, when I was hovering over the clay pit, you see that there's 3 options. When you're playing card, you can either buy it directly, use it to build your wonder, or sell the card for 3 gold. Now, spying straight, you must either have the resources or you have to be able to buy it from your neighbors. The second one is your wonder. So you'll basically take this card, put it underneath over here, underneath at the bottom of your civ card, and then you'll have built that first level of wonder. Now, to build these wonders, on the left-hand side, you have other resources required that you need to build it. In the center is what you get from building it. And the top right is basically the level of the wonder. Now, you have to build from left to right, so you can't just build your best one first. So you're slowly progressing and you're building up your wonder. So, as you see there, again, I'm pushing those resources. My left-hand neighbor is building up science slowly. My right-hand neighbor is also building up these resources. So now what you got here is quite an interesting card, which is the East Trading Post, which means that when I'm buying resources from my right-hand neighbor, I only spend 1 to buy it if it's a raw resource. So it's a way to build up your resources quite nicely if your neighbor is pushing brown raw resources, which my neighbor wasn't, which is why I then went for that instead. Now, here, this is the 3rd type of science which we have seen. And our marketplace, another interesting one, which is another trade type card. And what you see here is I can then get processed resources from either my opponents, which is the gray cards, at the cost of 1, which is fantastic. And you get 3 of those processed resources, which is science, loom, and scripture. Now, one thing to note on these cards is in the top right-hand corner. This symbol shows that this card upgrades to another card. Now, when you upgrade it to another card, generally those cards are in the next civilization. And the next age, I apologize. And when you upgrade to those cards, you don't require the resources to play that card. So if the upgrade had a resource cost, for instance, it required 2 iron and an ore, if you have the prerequisite, you don't have to pay the resource costs for that card. So you're essentially getting that card for free. So being able to build into the future is incredibly useful, because you can then not have to rely on your resources as much. So you can basically buy the cheaper version of the cards in an earlier age to then not have to worry about paying the more expensive costs in a following age. And now you can see I've gotten quite a bit of money because my opponents are constantly buying resources from me. Now you use that money at the end of the game for VPs. If I recall, it's 3 gold per VP. And what you saw there was the conflict stage. So in the conflict stage, I unfortunately had no military, so I lost my fight, which is why I got my negative VPs at the top right there. My opponent on my left has no military, so it was a draw. My opponent on my right has 2 military because they rushed their wonders early on, which was a great strategy for my opponent. So they had 2 military right off the bat, which enabled them to beat both myself and the opponent on my opponent's right. So my opponent ended up picking up 2 VPs. Now, if you're taking a look at these tracks over here, the number next to the star, to the left of it, is the VP. So it's kind of a way to keep track of VPs as you're going along. So far, I'm not in a great spot. But now we can start at the second age. Now we can start playing. Now, starting for second age, again, you start with a nice fresh hand, which is always quite nice to see. As you can see now, these cards are a lot better than the ones in the previous age. They give you a lot more. But at the same time, their requirements are a lot higher. You do still get resource cards in the second age, and it's the last age that you will get resources. In the third age, you do not get resources. However, now what's the nice thing we're starting to see is we're starting to see these upgrade cards. So at the top of each card, you get a little tick or a cross. If it's a green tick, it means you can buy it from your resources for no additional cost. If it's a green tick with an asterisk, that means that it's an upgrade card and you're able to play it for free. If it's a yellow tick with a number next to it, this is the cost of a card. This means you can buy the card, but you're going to be buying it from your neighbors. And the number next to it is the cost that you're paying. So I'd have to pay 1 gold to essentially buy that card. This fourth card is a free card. And the fifth card you see there is tick with 2, which means I'm paying 2 to buy this card. And finally, above these last 2 is the red tick, the red cross, sorry, which means that I cannot actually buy this card. I cannot even buy it from my neighbors. So it's a quick way to see which cards you're actually able to pick up and which cards you're not able to pick up. So we're slowly starting to build up here. I think I end up going for the yellow card just because it able to basically fix my resources quite nicely. So I can't even pronounce that. That is the final one. So as you can see, each person's civs gives them something different, which is quite cool. Now, when you're playing, if you scroll down, you can actually see the full list of cards in the game, as well as the number of them, which is also very important to keep track of if you're trying to count your cards. And these show you all the different cards that you're going to come into contact with the game. And the right-hand side, you see the ones which progress from each other. So you can see which stage 1s you need to build into your stage 2s. And you can see how they essentially build off of each other. So it's a nice idea to keep track of these to see what you need in the future and what you can get at the moment. So if you're ever unsure, you can always just scroll down in BGA. These guild cards are the final type of cards you get in the third age. They basically score you a huge amount of VPs, but you've got to build them very carefully. So as always, if you're ever unsure, just scroll down and you can take a full view of what you need. So take a look at it. I've started going for a bit of a spread going into the trading cards just to try and balance my resources a little bit better. My opponent on the left, it looks like they're starting to build science, which is something to keep track of, because science you can kind of run away with VPs if no one else does it. And my opponent on my right is going quite aggressive with the military, as well as just an overall spread, which is quite nice to see, and it's quite interesting. So what I'm trying to do here is, seeing that my opponent is going and building science, I decided to build my wonder with the science card to get rid of it and basically take it out of the game rather than pass it to my opponent. And it's a nice way to basically deny your opponent cards as much as possible. Now, I did make a mistake here. I actually put the lab down. I buried the lab instead of burying the library, which was a huge problem on my side because my opponent actually needed the library rather than the one I buried, the laboratory. That was a really bad play on my side there. And it ended up costing me a bit later on down the line. Because my opponent, as you saw there, they picked it up immediately, which is a big mistake on my end. Now, 2020 hindsight here, I really should have gone into this archery range rather than buying the wonder with it, because it would have got me a VPs against my left-hand opponent, and I could have built that later on, and it would have stopped me from losing against my right-hand opponent. So not building that really did hurt me. I kind of got super greedy when it came to wonders, and I tried to push it as quickly as possible, which at the time I thought was a good play. So now we're starting to see these guild cards come out. Now what the guild cards do is they basically have an effect with the opponent on your left, your opponent on your right, and sometimes to yourself. So if we look at this Philosopher's Guild, you're basically getting yourself 1 VP for each science card your opponent has on your left and your right, not counting your own. Which is quite interesting, because now you're getting VPs based on what your opponents have done. The Traders Guild is the opposite. It basically gives you VPs per yellow card each of your opponents have. So it really helps keeping track of what your opponents are doing, as well as what you think they will be doing. Another interesting card is the Haven, which is this 4th yellow card that I have over here. This actually gives you 1 gold and 1 VP per brown card that I have. So if I were to play it, I'd be getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 VPs as well as 5 gold, which is very interesting, because if you were planning to like push those resources, you can get quite a bit of gold from it. And I maybe should have gone for a bit of a gold game in this one, which I unfortunately didn't do. Another one to kind of look at here, which is very interesting, is like the Arena and the Ludus. These are cards again which are similar to the previous one, where they give you bonuses based on the cards you have. The Arena giving you 3 gold and a VP per wonder stage, and the Ludus, which is 3 gold and 1 VP per military building you have. So these 3rd age cards really give you a lot. Now here, the Decorator's Guild is an interesting one, because you basically get 7 VPs if you finish your wonder, which ironically is really bad for me because I got 4 stages of wonder, which is really unfortunate. But hey, that's what you get sometimes. Alright, and moving along, we carry on rotating now. This is like the final scoring. It's looking like a bit of a close game. Unfortunately, I fell behind quite quickly. My idea for this game was going for as many raw resources as possible, and with the idea of my opponents buying from me. Unfortunately, my opponents had the same idea, which ended up backfiring on me very badly, because I pushed all these raw resources for not that much. I probably could have gone for more of a merchant build, but hey, 2020 hindsight. So overall, this is the final build up now, where we're kind of getting our final cards. I'm trying to push the guild cards to get as many VPs as possible. Here, I would have loved the Builders Guild so much more if my opponent to my left had also built their wonders, because it would have given me an additional 3. And you can actually see here I'm busy counting it up, debating between the Arena or the Builders Guild. And I ended up going for the Arena because it essentially gave me 7 VPs, whereas from the guild card I would have only gotten 6. And again here I'm busy counting up between the Traders Guild and the Haven to try and get as much as possible. And again here I went for Haven to get me the gold. So I ended up getting a lot of gold in this game. So I really probably should have gone for more of a gold-centered game. And again, not having that that 2 military really did cost me it. And my opponent to my right ended up winning the game, and ended up coming 3rd. So that not having that 2 military was such a problem for me, because I would have basically had 1 less minus, and I would have had an additional 3 VP for that 1 win. So I basically would have had an additional 4 VP, which would have won me the game, which is really disappointing. But overall, I'm loving this game. I'm often playing it on the weekends, because it's just so short. It's 10 minutes a game. It's great. So I hope you like this. This is very different from what I normally do on my channel, but I love myself some board games. I'll play board games basically every single weekend on BGA. And just as a note, I'm not affiliated in any way to BGA. I just love the service. And especially in these days where you can't really get together and play board games, this is a great way to actually get together with your friends and play some board games. So I hope you enjoyed this. I plan on doing a few more of these board games in the future, as I'm playing a lot of board games recently. And yeah, I like it. So thanks so much for watching. If you did enjoy this, please do consider giving a like and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, I hope to see you in more of these videos, and I hope you enjoying these board games as much as I am. Cheers, everyone. Enjoy.